What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at the RG52 Mini with a focus on PSP emulation. PSP emulation on a handheld can make or break it. So we are going to put PSP to the test today. From game performance to ergonomics to the super sweet 5.5-inch display to a super secret dual boot OS system and its functionality. Here is everything you need to know about the RG52 Mini before you buy. Let's take a look. Before we get rolling, AILSPC did send me this RG52 Mini over for review. As always, when we review theirs and other devices, no money has exchanged hands and all opinions are of course my own. They won't see this video before you do, so this is going to be a surprise for everybody. All right, let's take a look at the specs here real quick. This is running Linux under an Emulation banner. It also does have the ability to get into something called RGBox, and that is a kind of a new system. I haven't run into it before. I will show you kind of what that's all about once we get to that point. The display is 5.5 inches. It is an IPS, and it is 1280 by 720, so it is a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Now, this is running a unique chip, and I think it's going to become less unique with Ramageddon. We are seeing some companies going towards some of these other Rockchip chips that we just haven't seen them use in the past. The CPU in here is the Rockchip RK3562 quad core, and it is 2 gigahertz even. The GPU in here is a Mali G52 2EE. That's 2 E's after the 2, in case you're trying to look it up. It does have 2 gigs of RAM, which is nice because the last device we looked at with the RK3562 only had 1 gig of RAM, and we are seeing a significant power boost here, as we suspected when we were looking at the other device. Depending on where you look, this either has 4 or 8 gigs of internal eEMC storage. Not really sure which of the two it is. It doesn't really matter. It's just holding that super secret OS on here. We do have linear Hall effect triggers in here, and it also does support the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. As far as audio goes, they say it's a single speaker. There are 2 speaker holes on here, so I don't know if it's in the middle and it's pumping out of both of them, but if you put them up to your ear, you do hear music out of both holes. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen that, but it does say that we do have 1 speaker in here. It's a hi-fi cavity speaker. We also, for audio, do have a 3.5 millimeter jack hole here, right here on the bottom. As far as the I/O on here, we do have Type-C used for charging, and also you can plug a controller into it. I actually had to do that to fix something, so it's definitely possible. We also do have the HDMI out here up on the top, and the 3.5 hole they are calling an auxiliary jack, so you probably could run video off of it as well. I did not try that. I don't have a cable for it that I can find. I'm sure I've got some old handhelds somewhere that had it, but don't have one in front of me. We do have a 5,000 milliamp battery in here. They say it's up to 8 hours. I would say it's probably closer to 5.5 to 6, but it is a pretty strong battery for a retro handheld of this stature. And then you can put up to a 2 terabyte SD card in here. I don't know that that's completely true. On the Emulation Linux side, they do seem to be limited right around 1 terabyte. Then they start to have issues. You wouldn't need that for this device anyways. For the systems you'll be playing on it, they'll be small enough to fit onto a smaller card. No bigger than a 512. You're definitely going to get away with a 256, and you don't really need any more than a 128, unless you're only going to play PSP, PlayStation, stuff like that. In which, if that's the case, more power to you. Now, there is a secret operating system on here. It's really not a secret. I just like to call it that. Because normally if you just hit the power button, it's going to turn off, right? It's going to go into standby mode. But if you actually want to check this out, you hold this for about 3 seconds. It's going to pop up a new menu. And then the option all the way to the right is RGBox. So RGBox is an operating system that's also on this device. It's not the Emulation front end. It actually looks a little bit like Onion OS. Like strikingly similar to Onion OS. The simplicity and everything. There's no apps in here, which I think you could add apps and stuff. But I think what people are going to want is this download folder. And in here, you can see all the systems in here. And there are games available that are not currently on your memory card that just happen to be on this operating system. I don't know where they come from. I don't know if it does or doesn't work without internet, but there's some games over there. So you might want to, if that's something you want to do. I personally only use my own backups, but some people out there might be different. Now, I wouldn't recommend gaming on this side. Everything's kind of a little bit wonky. Some of the systems work fine, and some of them don't. It's still kind of a RetroArch backend, but it's not quite the same. It's not set up the same. So I would say if you were to come in here, it does put everything in the exact same folder. So it plays the same games from the same folders on either side. So if you were to check out those downloads and try to find your game files that you aren't able to find for some reason, they're lost on your memory card, you could come over here and find them. And then you could just hold it for 3 seconds. All the way to the right is going to be going back to Emulate. And then we're right back into our main system all over again with those new games. Now, I haven't downloaded any. My card had 5,000 on it, still has 5,000 on it. But And I think there's 18 systems on here right now, so good enough for me. It's going to take me a long time to go through 5,000 games, but if you can fly through games faster and you need to get the rest of the backups that you have from your library, that might be a good way for you to do it. Pretty much everything that I threw on it within reason works pretty good on here. In fact, you can even do 2x on PSP, which is really good to see on a handheld in this price range. I know you're going to want to know the pros and cons of this device, so you can decide if it's worth it for you to pick up yourself right now. And so I will go through those with you real quickly. My first con of this device is the bezels on here. The graphics on here kind of sort of make them blend in a little bit, but at the end of the day, there's still some pretty thick bezels for a handheld in 2026. They definitely could have done some work to make those smaller. One of my other complaints is going to be the small face buttons on here. They could easily have made bigger face buttons. They work just fine. They're great face buttons as far as performance goes, but they are so tiny and they had such an opportunity. They have all the space to do it. They could easily put even twice the size of a face button in there. Maybe not, needing to be that big, but it would have been a possibility for them. And they kind of just glossed right over that. I'm not sure why they put such small face buttons in here. Do they work though? Yeah, they work great. I just wish they were bigger. These start and select locations on here are probably one of my biggest pet peeves. This happens to me every time that I am working with a handheld that has their start and select set up the way that it is, because your start and select buttons are on the bottom where there naturally should be here on the top. Now people call them menu buttons, whatever, but start and select should be down here. And I haven't found a way to remap them. If I do though, I will definitely put a comment down in the comment section down below to let you know how to do it. So if you do pick this up, you'll be able to remap those. Actually, you know what? I'll put it right in the description of the video probably as well. I'll put it somewhere for you around this video so you can figure out how to remap it. But I am constantly hitting the wrong buttons here, and I'm going to show you what happens when you think you're going to start a game. So this is back and this is home. So home button, you're still okay, right? You're still in the game. But if you hit back instead of start where you think you're gonna start the game, you always end up back on the home screen. And this happens to me every single time I pick up the device. I forget, and the first game I go to play, I do that. After that, I'm usually pretty self-taught not to do it again. But the first game that I usually play, that happens to me, and it drives me absolutely nuts. Now your start and select buttons are here on the bottom, and they do get you into your menus, which is nice. Here you can do your gaming type menu stuff, and then here you can actually do your overall system menu. But under the controller settings, I didn't find these buttons, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit more digging. It may be something where we have to do it in like Notepad, and if that's the case, I'm just gonna leave them the way that they are. But if I can find an easier way to do it, I will definitely let you know. Now, one of the other things too is this does have Nintendo Switch style sticks. I mean, they literally are spitting images of Nintendo sticks. They might even be replacement sticks for a Nintendo Switch. I wouldn't know until I pulled it open, but it would be nice to see them be Hall effect. Even in this price range, their competitors are using Hall effect sticks. Now, that doesn't really matter for your day-to-day operation of it. It could affect polling rate, I suppose, but we're not going to see that in the games we're playing on here. The biggest issue is longevity of the device. This is a well-built device, even though it's plastic, so I think it's going to last a while. And if that's the case, you don't want your sticks to go bad. It would just be nice if they were Hall effect sticks and they lasted a lifetime, but They're not, and that's okay. A lot of handhelds don't use them, but in this price range, a lot of handhelds are using them, and I would have liked to have seen Hall effect sticks in here. And then my last con is there is no active cooling in here, but this is a big ventilation spot for active cooling. And so I don't know if this is going to be for the Pro model of this. I believe there's an R52 Pro Max. It's either out or coming out, and maybe that's what this will be. Maybe there'll be a fan in here. It would be better for the environment for them to continue to reuse these shells. So I'm totally cool with that. It makes sense to me that they would want to reuse this shell on a more max device. That would be good for everybody. And then that would also make parts more available for it. If you break something, you're gonna have more devices to get parts from. And I wouldn't want them to put a plug here where you didn't get any ventilation, because you are still gonna get an advantage here, but there is no active cooling. It looks like an active cooling device. Between your fan back here and your exhaust up here, it really looks like you should be having a lot of movement for air. And it probably does still move some air, not like obviously blowing, but if it gets too hot, you can just blow onto it, it'll be fine. Now with all that out of the way, let's go through some of the pros of this device, because I have far more pros than I have cons, and that is really good to see in a device like this. So we'll start off with this display. It is a 5.5-inch 720p display, and it looks phenomenal. Especially, like I said, I focused a little bit on PSP on this because it is 16:9, and the games look really good on here. On top of the ability to be able to upscale them, on top of that, you are really getting a bonus here as far as quality and clarity of this display. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is this D-pad here. At first, I was a little bit hesitant on this D-pad. It just didn't seem like the D-pad that was going to be for me. But what I did find out is it's very accurate, and I didn't get any missed inputs. No accidental diagonals, nothing like that. The D-pad works very well. And so I have zero complaints over what this D-pad has to offer, other than, you know, it's a little thin, which was my concern to begin with. But once you start to use it, it doesn't take any time to adjust to it. So definitely a bonus there. Now, the next pro I want to talk about is the price performance. This is a good price to performance machine. If you're going to, I landed on PSP. How crazy was that? That wasn't even on purpose. If you're going to want to be playing something like PSP or Game Boy Advance, this is going to be a device that's going to work really good for you. And honestly, Game Boy Advance is my favorite system to emulate. But as far as 16:9 goes, PSP is going to be obviously the winner in this category, and it looks really good. I didn't come across a whole lot of hiccups or anything like that with like games that wouldn't play. I mean, you do occasionally, but that is also just part of using an emulator. And like I was saying before, you are getting that 2x performance on most PSP games, which, I mean, how can you complain about that? The only complaint I have about the PSP system on here is that you can't use retro achievements on the version of PPSSPP that they have, which is kind of a bummer, but it's whatever. I'm starting to get used to them just not working under PPSSPP at this point. Now, this is a very comfortable device too, and I want to make sure I highlighted that again. And you just do. You have got these little bumps back here, but they're not overdone. And they're like perfect, at least for my hands. These things fit perfectly, these bumps, and it feels so good. Usually I don't use the full curve, and I think that a lot of people probably run into this where like part of the ergonomics, even if it's good ergonomics, only part of it is actually touching your hand. Here, the entire thing is touching my hand, and the dips are exactly where my center knuckles are on my middle fingers, which is exactly what they're supposed to be designed for. And this is one of the first devices, especially in this price category, that have done this correctly. And I am very grateful for it because I played a lot of hours on here and my hands never got cramped up. Now, on top of that, you know, obviously we just went through that, but the build quality on here is really good. And, you know, part of that ergonomics is that build quality, but it does blend right into the build quality of the handheld, and it is built very well. I actually had a pretty good drop with this thing. Don't tell AISLPC. Yeah, she went tumbling and nothing happened. I didn't even get a scratch, which, I mean, that's just a high quality plastic, obviously prevented it from getting scratched up. It actually landed on this side over here and you can't see anything. So that's pretty cool. And she skipped a couple times after that, but you would have thought there would be a big gouge there. There's nothing. I don't know if this is a pro or a con. It really depends on who you ask, but there is that secret dual boot OS. Not really a secret, but most people aren't going to find it because they're not going to hold the button long enough. If you are looking to build your game library, it might be an advantage to you. I will say the same thing I always say, use your own ROM backups, you know, do all that stuff on your own. I don't really like the cards that come inside of these already pre-built to begin with. Usually the games are kind of crap. This one does pretty good. I didn't run into a whole bunch of bad ROMs, but, you know, I prefer to build the library myself. So that super sneaky RGBox OS, not necessarily necessary for me. You can play games over there too, but it does perform better using Emulate pretty much across the board for all systems. So I would just stick to that for the game playing. And then if you need to meander over to the other side and take a look at the catalog, you can do that too. You will find though, I have a 64 gig card in here. Most of the games that are in that catalog, at least from what I saw, I wasn't in there but briefly just to see what it was. most of the games that are in there that I came across were already on the device when I received it. So it actually acts more as a backup, at least from what I could tell, but I could be wrong. I spent a couple seconds in there just to see what it looked like and what it was. And I really just saw a download button, was like curious. Another really cool thing on here is the HDMI out, which does allow you to consoleize this device. And you can even put in, even though it doesn't say OTG, this Type-C does work as an OTG to plug in a controller. So you do get some benefits there. I am a fan of any handheld you can consoleize. I just feel like you get more use out of it. And this HDMI port here on the top makes that possible. And you are able to plug a controller in through the USB-C down here. Even though it doesn't say OTG, it does work as an OTG port. So you are able to plug a controller right down in there and play on a bigger screen. And the last thing I want to talk about is this having a functional, that's right, a functional standby mode. It's very rare that we run into a device that actually works in standby out of the box without putting custom firmware on it. This one here does work right out of the box and actually goes into standby mode. I left it for 4 days on the home screen on here, but I had just put it into standby, and 4 days later I came back and I still had a battery. And that's just not something you see very often with an OS that's coming directly from the factory. So a stock OS does not normally have that capability. So that is just one more check mark on the book of what makes this thing pretty cool and builds a lot more value to it. And now I know the next question is going to be, should you buy the RG52 Mini? It really depends on what you're looking for. If you want a PSP handheld, if you're looking for something to play PSP right around this price range, this is a great handheld for that. It does work good with some of those other systems as well, but I would focus on PSP with this device. That is really where it shines. So if I was looking for a PSP device, it does play it at a higher resolution and better than a stock PSP. So I think that's a good way to look at it, as well as all those other systems that it can play, which some you can actually emulate on PSP, but a lot of them you are unable to, and you're able to play them right on here. So yeah, I think there's some good value there. If this is what you're looking for, then absolutely this would be a good device for you. But if you're looking for something a little bit more powerful, where you're going to be able to play GameCube and PS2, honestly, don't even think about this device, because you're not going to ever be able to play either of those on here. The RK3562 is a newer chip in this space, not new in general, but newer in this space, but I don't think they'll ever get that kind of performance out of it. Holy cow, I almost forgot. Links to pick one of these up are down on my thingamabob. And again, thank you to AILSPC for sending this over for review. And again, pick one up. Links down below. But that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel. And you know, we care about each other around here, and that's how we get all of our growth, is through sharing videos. Once you're done with all that subscribing and sharing and stuff like that, check out one of these other videos up here on the screen that YouTube left for you. Based on your algorithm, they think you're gonna like it, and they're never wrong. At least I don't think they're ever wrong, because they trap me and I just keep watching videos, whatever they put in front of me. So I hope that they do the same thing to you, so we can get a few more of these videos, a little bit more love. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.